What is up, and I welcome each and every one of you back to a brand new Civ 6 or Civilization 6 guide. Today we are going to be talking about different settling strategies, where to settle, how to settle, what do you do once you've settled, and how to pretty much set yourself up for success by founding the best possible capital you can in specific conditions. Now, the way this video is going to be set up is I'm going to be talking about where you should settle, where you should look towards settling the most, whether you should move your settler on the first turn and maybe even skip a turn or two, and maybe all the different tiles and yields that you do want to be working early on, before going through some examples and showing you where I would personally settle my capital city in that specific circumstance. So without further ado, let's get started and talk about the different places you should look to settle and what are the best yields to work early on. So obviously the most important thing when looking to settle a city is to make sure you have settled near fresh water. If you don't settle near any source of water, you're not going to get any sort of housing. And while that might seem okay on a city like your capital is one of the cities that you want to be as high a population as possible. So for example, if I decide to settle on no water, for example, and not even coastal water, I am going to be getting a maximum of, I think it would be able to settle 3 population before getting any sort of growth penalty. It's either 2 or 3, which isn't a lot. But if I settle on fresh water, I'd have 6 housing, I think, which lets me get to 5 population and even 6 population super duper easy. So obviously the best place you do want to settle is fresh water for the 3 housing. And if you can't, maybe even settle for coastal water for the 1 housing. I would recommend 99.99% of the time you settle on fresh water. Now, fresh water is essentially 2 sources, rivers and lakes. Now, how do you tell the difference between a coast and a lake? It's simple. Number 1, the coast literally looks different from a specific lake. I'm glad there's actually a lake over here. Number 2, if you literally just hover over it with your mouse, even if you haven't explored, because this could potentially still be an ocean and this could potentially still be a lake due to the amount of information we've gathered so far, just hover over it. It will literally tell you whether it's a lake or a forest. So you can see during the settler tab, the lake will give me the dark green housing bonus, which is 3 housing, whereas settling on the coast without rivers is only 1 housing. Again, you do want to always settle near rivers and lakes for that matter, essentially. The next thing we are going to be talking about is what yields do you want to work early on. I think obviously the best thing to work early on is probably a 2-2 tile. It will give you a decent amount of growth immediately for your first population, while at the same time allow you to build whatever you want to build early on, whether it be a scout, monument, warrior, slinger, whatever the hell you want. Whatever you want is going to be built a lot faster while working a 2-2 tile. And working a 3 food tile isn't the worst thing as a second option, but as a first option, I don't think working a 3 food no production tile is worth it, because if you do, you are going to be so far behind when it comes to food, when it comes to building stuff and building production. You know, if you only have 5 warriors or 2 warriors instead of 5 warriors built, that's a pretty big difference, whereas the 1 food difference is not going to be all that much. Instead of growing in 5 turns, you're going to be growing in 7 turns instead. Obviously, ancillary stuff like gold, science, culture, faith is good. Like, for example, this is a 2-2 tile with gold, so this is obviously the best tile to work in the surrounding vicinity. But this 2-1-3 tile, while still pretty decent and probably better than the 3 food cattle tile, I would still work the stone over this tile first, just because the 1 extra production, in my opinion, is a lot better than 3 extra gold early on. Obviously, you want to work this eventually, and it will be worked pretty early by about turn 10 or 15, quite honestly. But in all likelihood, you're just going to be wasting production. You could be getting twice as much production from stone, and gold early on isn't really the most valuable resource. You can at most buy a warrior or 2, maybe a builder or something like that. But the tiles you do want to work are 2-2 tiles or above, and stuff like cattle and 3 food tiles or 1 food 3 production tiles should be saved for your 3rd or 4th population. The other thing I want to talk about is where exactly you should put your city. The best, without a doubt, the best place to put your city on is a gems tile, because you would get the food production and gold out of it. The way this game works is that no matter where you settle, you're going to be getting at least 2 food and 1 production. So if I settle in the middle of this desert right here, I'll be getting 2 food, 1 production on the city. If I settle over there, I'm going to be getting 2 food, 1 production on the city. If I settle over there, I'm going to be getting 2 food, 1 production on the city. Well, it doesn't really matter because there's literally a volcano nearby. So unless we want to get Pompeii, we don't want to settle over there. Again, that's the minimum you can work. So if I, for example, decide to settle a Plains Hill tile, it's going to turn into a 2 food, 2 production city. It's not going to remove the production from the Plains Hill tiles. The only way it would remove production is if it removes a forest or underlying feature. When you settle a city, the underlying feature like a forest, marsh, or rainforest gets removed. So for example, if I settle on this tile, I'm not going to be getting 2 food, 3 production. The woods are going to be removed, so instead it would be 2 food, 2 production. And again, if I settle on this 2-1 tile, nothing's going to change because it's at the minimum and I won't get any other boosts. And if I settle on the cattle, it'll turn into a 3 food, 1 production tile. So resources don't get removed like luxuries or strategics or bonus resources. Only features do. So if I settle on this tile, for example, I would be getting 2 food, 3 gold. I'd lose the production because it's on a forest and it would get removed. However, the truffles would stay, so I'd keep the 2 food and the 3 gold. I'd also keep the 1 production as well because the minimum has to be 2 food, 1 production. So essentially, I'd still be getting a 2 food, 1 production city, even with the forest removed. But in this specific situation, I think I'd probably just settle in place, quite honestly. Yeah, because I do want to work this tile immediately, and I would be still pretty decently close to the truffles tile either way. And if I decide to move over there, I'd have to work this tile or the cattle tile. And like I said, the 2-2 stone tile is the best. The other thing is that settling a city closer to the desert tile means less possible good tiles to work. I could obviously get the Petra, but I might want to save the Petra if I decide to end up putting a city, for example, right over there. Maybe I would want that to be my Petra city. I don't really want to make this my Petra city, and even if I did, I'd still be able to put the Petra, albeit it would be a pretty bad Petra in general. But yeah, the final thing I want to talk about is, should you move your first settler? In this situation, I'm not going to move my first settler. The answer is obviously it does depend on where you're starting, what tiles are nearby. If you can get a benefit from moving your settler, even by moving it on a hill and wasting a turn, do it for sure, without a doubt. Like, for example, if there was no stone and no cattle here, and this is just 2 food, and this is 2 food, 1 production tile, and let's say there was a river over here, I would move my settler over there just to work the 2-2 tile immediately. But in a lot of spaces like this, I could move my settler and work the 2-2 tile immediately, but I'd be sacrificing a lot of housing from rivers, and even moving, like let's say this truffles tile was instead over there or over there, for example. I still wouldn't move and settle, because at the end of the day, my starting tiles with cattle, stone, truffles, and eventually I'd be able to get this truffles is still a very good start location. And try not to move your settler, but if you see a good opportunity to, definitely make the move is essentially what I'm trying to say. But yeah, where I'd settle the city is just immediately settle in place, quite honestly. Oh my god, I don't know why it's lagging. But here it is, City of Ottawa. This is a pretty good spot to settle, and this is where I would start out my empire as Canada. But let's go into another start. I'll click restart once, and I'll show you guys what would happen in a different situation. And we have loaded back in, playing as the bane of America's existence, and we do have an amazing start pretty much over here. You can see there are a lot of 2-2 tiles, lots of 2-1-2 tiles, even a 3 food tile down south. Now, one of the things I forgot to talk about is, where do you move your starting warrior? Always move your warrior before your settler. Even if you don't have to, just get in the habit of doing it, because if you move, you could like expand a little bit further, I guess. You could get more information, and maybe you could find some good tiles down south, for example, and you'd be like, okay, I want a second city down here, so I might move my settler up there to make room for it. But in this situation, what I would recommend is, you have 2 options right now, right? Moving on the settler tile is useless because you'll get the same amount of visibility. Moving down there is kind of useless because you'd only get 1 tile, whereas you can move like here to get these 5 tiles all over there. Moving there is kind of useless because the hill jungles are blocking your way. So there are 2 options. Move up there, or move down south. Now, looking at this over here, if I settle in place, the forest will get removed, but it'll be a 2-1 tile. I could settle here and get a 2-2 tile because it's a plains hill, move there and get a 2-2 tile because it's a plains hill, or move on the copper and get a 2-1-2 tile. Now, the copper's not bad, and they're all next to a river, so I think it really does depend on what you want. I'm going to, I really don't know at this point. This is really like, you could either move there or down south. No bad answers, I don't think. I do sort of want to be near the copper, though, and there are a 3 food tile down south, so I am going to move my warrior down south over there. And yeah, now the question becomes, is it worth it to move and settle? In my opinion, in this situation, I think it is for a number of reasons. Number one, you're going to move down there and you're going to get that 2-2 tile, the sweet 2-2 tile instead of a 2-1 tile. But that's not enough. The other reason is that while these tiles will be gotten eventually, you'd be getting a large amount of food tiles. And not only that, but look at this. Down here, we would be able to build an aqueduct. Apparently not, but over here, we would be able to build a dam. Wow, I think I have to put the city over there, actually. Yeah, I'd be able to put a dam, whereas if I move up north, I don't know if I could or not. And then over here, I would get the industrial zone. Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely insane. It cannot be placed on grassland floodplains. Okay, well, it's fine because we're just going to go ahead and put it over there. Perfect. And the other thing you could do is maybe you could have like a campus tile over there, right? And then you could go ahead and have the commercial hub over there. And then we could, why can this not be built? Must be built on, okay, we have to like animal husbandry that, I guess. And then over here, you could go ahead and get the government plaza. And then you're looking at a +7 industrial zone tile. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of things that do have to go in. But I think I've had enough of playing as America's Boogeyman. I'm going to go ahead and pick somebody else. And we'll do this a couple more times probably. And finally, we are back at it with World War II's biggest loser. This is a pretty decent start so far. Now, when we're talking about moving the warrior, I think the best place to move him would actually be to move him west, I think. There really is no place where I'd move my settler like twice just to get to a good spot over there, and it does turn out to actually be mountain, so that was kind of useless. But over here you have two options. You could settle on this tile or settle on the wheat tile, or you could go ahead and settle west. Now, this isn't the best start, really, at all, quite honestly, but I think really one of the things we have to worry about is if we moved there, we wouldn't be able to get a city on this tile, and that's probably the biggest reason, because getting a city over here, for example, is still very good, and in order for us to do that, we'd have to settle on these two tiles instead. I think the best thing you do in this situation is probably just stay where you're at, honestly. Moving there doesn't give you a big advantage. In any case, you're going to lose the copper tile, and you're going to be farther away from the mountains to put campuses. This is a pretty good start as well. You know, you could go ahead and maybe put a campus tile over there. You can maybe build a holy site over there. So I guess this is the best idea. Moving there, you'd waste a turn, and you'd have lots of, like, ocean tiles, which are kind of useless without the mausoleum to work. So really, moving there, we need the other city, so we can't move there. Moving there is literally just wasting time for a same location, except for the fact that you're going to be farther away from campus tiles, and you're going to have to spend money to buy those tiles. And moving there, you're literally just going into the ocean. We're not Atlantis. We're not going to be settling over there, even though it is a Plains Hill tile. So the best place to do in this situation would be to just settle in place of Kyoto. Let's go ahead and do this one more time before giving my closing statements, and one other tip that you guys should definitely know about. And for our last location, we are playing as the one who no-you'd the Crusaders, Saladin of Arabia. So what we're going to do in this situation, it's a pretty interesting situation. Lots of luxuries, bonus resources, and great tiles. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to settle on this tile. The reason for that is I don't want to settle on a 2-2 tile because it'll become 2-1, and that's just wasting resources. Looking at the water tile, we have a good number of options. We could settle pretty much here, here, or here without wasting more than one turn. So really, these options depend on your personal preference. Settling on this tile isn't the worst thing in the world. Settling on this wheat tile isn't bad either. I think the best thing for you to do in this situation, though, is to actually go ahead and settle this city over there. You are wasting a turn, and I know I should have moved my warrior. Don't say anything in the comments. I literally know that. But yeah, I think I'm going to settle in this tile right here because of a number of reasons. Number one, we get a great 2-2 tile to start. Number two, 2, we spawn directly near 2 marble. And number 3, the only thing we're really giving up with this tile is getting easy access to the 3 food marshes. And we still have a marsh over there. We have wheat for more food. And then we literally just have floodplains everywhere. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think this is the best place to start, the best thing to do. And I think that's going to be it. I think I've shown you guys more than enough. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, obviously like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And let me know down below what other strategies you might have. And oh, I forgot about the super secret top tier super duper strategy I was talking about. Now, if you settle on a bonus or luxury resource, you are going to be getting that resource's yields. Like if you settle on the marble, you're going to be getting the culture in your capital city. So the way you do that is if you settle on top of the marble, you'll be getting 2 food, 2 production, 1 culture instead of the normal 2 food, 1 production, which is absolutely insane and really, really good. The other thing I do want to talk about is like don't settle right beside an active volcano. If you settle like where I am near it and this thing erupts, you're only going to be losing maybe 1 or 2 population. But if you put your city center right beside it, you might lose a lot more than that. So definitely be careful in that. And yeah, on that note, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace. Huge shout out to my members, Cash Christian, Ben Ownby, John Blair, Jackson Perez, Polaris Gaming, Emporium, Adam Mester, Jeff Utzler, Kim Cosmos. A really special shout out to my oh my god subscribers, Robert and Overflow of Amenities.